Hi, welcome to Smith and Grezzy. Sandy and Simon here again, but this week we're talking to an old friend, Richard Wilton, who is head of the Shepherd Group Band. Welcome, Richard, from both of us.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, guys. Great to see you both.
Sandy and myself have watched the band's progress with interest. Obviously, you know Sandy better than me, and I know that you lean on Sandy's knowledge now and again, as I do. And, it's nice to see the band flourishing. We just wanted to get a bit of a background, Richard, on how the organisation came about and how it's moving forward. So I just wondered before we do that, if you could give us a little bit of a background as to how you started in music.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great to see you both. My background is under the tutelage, really, of Graham Walker, that you both know, the cornet player, yeah. Yorkshire Imperial. Yeah. So I went to Sherburn High School, and I was taught to play through, the North Yorkshire music service system. Graham was a huge part of that. And
just to interject, Richard, the last time I saw Graham he was conducting Hummonby Band on the bandstand at Filey.
At Filey, yeah. Well, Graham's retired out to Filey, and he lives in the flats that overlook the bandstand.
I was there last week.
Oh, he's loving life. I think he's loving life. So yeah, he's taking the Hummonby Band, and lovely. As I say, he taught me to play. He was my peripatetic teacher. And then when I went up to Sherburn High School, at that time they had a phenomenal youth band, a school band. So we were playing at the Royal Albert Hall in the national finals. We were doing all these amazing things. And then he basically formed a little band in the village where most of us lived around within sort of 5-mile radius, which was a band called Hambleton Brass. And it was really for the guys that in the school band that were getting to an age where they were leaving school. And although one or two had gone on to bigger and better things, for the majority of us, it was somewhere we could go and do our banding. And that went with great success. Changed its name as the Manufacturing Band. It became the South Milford Brass Band. So we played there, and then it was, early 90s when I'd been playing in the band on solo E-flat bass in the village band and at school. And then I got a call from another tuba player, a guy called Pete Smith, who at the time was the solo E-flat bass player at Carlton, Maine. And he kept ringing me up, and I was really shy. And I got so many, not offers, but people asking me to go and come down. I remember you ringing up, Simon, to be fair, back 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, probably more than that.
You've got a better memory than me.
Yeah, I can remember that so vividly, but I'd be sort of hiding, getting my dad to answer the phone and just saying, no, I'm not in type of thing. And I remember Pete ringing up and saying, will you come to Carlton, Maine? And I gave the usual rhetoric over the phone. Yeah, when I get a chance, I'll come. He says, well, get your tuba, he says, because I'm sat outside your house. Ooh. So that was it. I fell into this trap, and I looked up through the letterbox, and there he was, waving at me from his car.
That's brilliant.
I had to go down, and so I ended up joining Carlton, Maine at quite a young age. I'm not sure I was quite ready for it, to be honest, but I remember auditioning on they were playing Spectrum for the Grand Shield. Right. I thought, there's no way that I can play that, in the band like this. But I went back the following Thursday, and the rest was, and I'd had some brilliant years, over 10 years, some brilliant times at Carlton, Maine. And then the success then, it had been a first section band struggling. And then I think we're 99 when things started. Johnny Hinckley had just come to conduct the band and pulled in quite a lot of good players. Things turned around really quickly, and we actually won the area that year on Blitz.
I remember that well.
Yeah, right. So it was a little bit of a shocker. I think for everybody involved, it was a shocker. Probably the other bands, but then we actually went. Then the couple of months later, we went to the Spring Festival to the Grand Shield, and we won really convincingly on Comedy Overture.
Great piece.
So I think Bram Gay had actually adjudicated the area on Blitz. And I remember him coming straight over to us at the end of the performance on Comedy saying, "Oh, thank you, gents. Thank you, ladies and gents, because you've saved my reputation there, because it was getting a bit of a battering after the Blitz result." So that was really nice. And then, as I say, I think that was sort of the catalyst then. And then I won't say disappointingly, because it was a very, very short tenure. I just started working at Norman's on Leeds Road in Huddersfield. I got a job working there. I wanted to do all sorts of things, teaching, but I fell into this sort of thing of going and selling instruments. I thought that was the way forward. And I ended up getting my head turned, and I went to Sellers, which, to be honest, was wonderful. It was real great setup under David Armitage and what have you. And
they were a fine band, weren't they?
Yeah, it was really good. And there was Kirsty Abbots and Rupert Tripp. It was a really good band. And I enjoyed the sort of less about 10 months and got involved with the youth band as well with David Essex. So that gave me a little bit of that gave me a little bit of an inkling that I quite like this conducting and teaching thing a lot, But I then got a phone call from Sean Crowther to see if I would go down to and have a blow at Grimy, and then I went there early 2000, and yeah, I mean that was musically that was brilliant for the next 5 or 6 years, playing down at Grimethorpe. And
am I right in thinking Sandy and yourself were there together?
Yes. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. So, and I think I just sort of hit at the right time. I mean, I don't know all the background, but I know that Gary Cutt had decided that he sort of wanted to revamp the bass section. Yeah. And I mean, I just hit. It was just like the perfect storm. Sean had arrived, Dean Morley had arrived, and Gary Tiny Proctor had arrived. So I sort of went in as this. Well, I was the tiny one. I was so much smaller than these guys, even Sean at 6 foot odd, So, but that was a massive turning point for me as a player, as a musician. I
bet it was quite an education, both musically and otherwise, with that crowd.
yeah, and I mean, I've always thought I could play, and I was always sort of at Sellers on the end, and at Carlton Main on the end, and thought I could play, but that was an education. Sat with those guys, it was another level, and just constantly told, certainly for the first year, that you just don't blow loud enough, more. And Dean, I love Dean to bits, but that was the general rehearsal, 2-hour rehearsal, being told by Dean that I'm going to have to start blowing, grow another lung, and
a few months ago I were listening. In fact, me and you judged Life Divine, didn't we, Sandy, at the Spring Festival? Yeah. And so I thought, where's the best recording I can find? And I stumbled across the Grimy one. The bass section playing on that is just unreal.
The whole band. I mean, that's that's one of those history of brass band music CDs that Mr. Howard did.
That's
right. And it's. I mean, it was about the same time, Richard, that we both sort of joined, and that was a big draw for me, Mr. Howard there, and all that stuff. And he went through all this repertoire, and I remember that recording we did, Life Divine, and it was just electric. Because it was like it'd been written last week. Never mind,
It's got so much space in it, hasn't it?
And he just, all the best people do that, don't they? They can bring music of any era alive, and it was phenomenal. And you listen to that recording now, and you think, woof, I think we did win an area or two, didn't we?
Yes.
One of them was Rienzi. I remember. I think it was Rienzi. And that was a huge blow of a piece. And that band could just... They had stamina to spare, that band. Yeah. And that piece was just absolutely right up the street. Some bands I remember on the day sounded spent because the rehearsal had taken so much out of them with this huge blow of a piece.
Yeah.
We could have played it 2 or 3 times, and that was the way the band was,
It was phenomenal. It was, you're right, Sammy. It was a phenomenally the stamina of the band was incredible, wasn't it? It didn't matter what we played or when we played it. It was incredible. I think that was a standout, was Rienzi, and then I think there was a few, and I think you'd probably just gone, Sandy, but there was one that stands really out in my mind as well, was the winning performance in 2006 on Judges of the Secret Court.
I had finished.
And I've still got the recording, a CD recording of that, and I can remember coming out of the Albert Hall having played, and the first person I bumped into was Ted Griffiths.
Yeah,
and just sort of said, I was still quite young and very excited, because Philip McCann had played rep on that performance.
Right.
And as we were walking back to the changing room, Philip put his arm around me. He says, "Well, I think you're going to win your first nationals after that." And I was like, "Really?" I wasn't sure. I wasn't convinced. But Ted said, "I said, what did you think, Ted?" And he just looked at me and went, "A bit big and ballsy for me." And when you listen back to it, it's wow. I mean, I think I remember sort of thinking at the time, wow, I've never blowed so hard in my life. That was the ending of that, pumping out those minims, and it was just an incredible band to be part of. And as I say, I had a great time there. And then it was really weird. I got a phone call from the old South Milford band. So this band that had been formed by Graham all these years ago, and their MD had a heart attack. Really sadly, he was all right, he was fine, but they had a gig, and now I'd never, apart from a little bit at Sellers Youth Band, I'd never picked up a baton. I hadn't a clue. Right. So they rang me up, and a few of my friends from school were still in this band, and they said, "Would you come down on?" I think it was Friday night. "Would you take a rehearsal, and could you take us to a gig on the Saturday night? We don't know what to do." So I went all the way down to Selby, where they were now based. Sort of embarrassingly carved my way around this program and took them on this concert. And they then turned around and said, "Look, would you take us full time?" And I think it was a bit more romance than anything, the fact that it was my old band, the band that I'd learnt to play in. And I'd had a brilliant time at Grimy, and I actually left Grimy when they were on the Actric at the Albert Hall, but I didn't stick around. I went, and it was a great band, but I thought it was probably just about the right time for me to try something else. So I went and I took South Milford Band, and it was brilliant because I got a few of my old friends that had not played for a while. I taught them back into having a blow again. So we put quite a good band together and went straight through to Section 2 in consecutive years from a non-contest. They weren't contesting at all, and I think we went to the old Malton Entertainment Contest as an unregistered band and won the fourth section. So we decided to enter to the area the following year, and then I did sort of consecutive years up to Section 2, and they won the area and did a few nationals and did all right with that. And then my life was changing dramatically. I just I was in the process of a divorce, but I got myself a teaching job for North Yorkshire, and majority of my teaching was in and around York. So this is brass perrying. So I just, social media, I guess, at the time saw that the Shepherd group band, as it was then, were advertising for an MD. So I thought, well, I'm going to be in and around York. I'm looking to move there. This would be an obvious stepping stone. It was a first section band in crisis. Let's put it that way. They were at the bottom of the first section, and I didn't really realise this when I auditioned, that they'd obviously plugged a few gaps for the auditions.
I've had that before.
So got through the process. I think there were 3 or 4 of us, and I got through the process. They offered me the job, and then I found out there were 13 players. So we had 13 players in Shepherd's band in the first section, and I think we got 3 months until the area. So we ended up going to the area. I mean, I sort of helped as much as I could, trying to fill gaps at the time, but left it to the committee to try and get me a band to go with. And we ended up going to the first area in 2010, and it was on Moorside Suite, Ulst. And absolutely stunning, but I'd just not got the right component. Yeah. But I even remember they didn't have a solo trombone player, so they got a young lad, and I can't remember this young lad's name, but this was my first experience of conducting a decent area, sort of a higher level, first section level anyway. And young lad came from Cheatham's to play trombone. None of them knew him. He was just a name that had been given. So a really young guy, could really play. And we'd done the rehearsals, and it got to the Friday night, and I was talking about Sunday, about the contest, the show. And this young lad sort of put his hand up. He says, "What's happening on Sunday?" I said, "Well, it's the contest." He went, "Oh, no." He says, "I've been booked for Saturday." So I said, "Oh, no, it's not Saturday, it's Sunday. Is it a problem?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "I've got an orchestral gig on Sunday." So we ended up going to the area, and the plan was if we drew in the first 4, he could play. Anything after that, no chance. He got this orchestral gig. So I think we drew 4 or 5, and his dad were waiting and just opened the car door, and off he went.
Right.
So I'd sort of prepped it a little bit, but sort of scribbled all the stuff out for the solo baritone player, anything that seemed a bit important. And we went on, and we managed 3rd. Yeah. Don't till this day know how. But from that point, we sort of just built, and then I think it was 2 years later, we won the first section. Right. And I mean, frighteningly now, I've been there 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I keep pinching myself. I can't quite believe it. And as long as things keep moving out as they are, I think I'll probably end up there for another 15, and that'll be me done. But it's been great. Just going back actually, Simon, when you sort of introducing, it's quite an interesting little thing at the moment with the band, because the Shepherd band is the old Rowntree's band, for anybody that didn't know. So, that's got a huge history, hundreds of years old. The Cocoa Works band, founded by Rowntree's in York. So that would have been about 2000. Was when the Rowntree's company was taken over by the Swiss firm Nestle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as with a lot of these things, the buildings are sold off. They're all absolutely beautiful flats now, like the Terry's Chocolate Factory in York is, the stunning flats next to the racecourse. But there's not a lot going on. Everything is now condensed into a much smaller site at Rowntree's. So they sold everything off. The band room went. It was never a financial agreement with Rowntree's band. It was always a home. So, so they were then suddenly on the street. And a couple of the guys at the time worked for Portakabin, which is the Shepherd name comes from the family that owned Portakabin, which is obviously the biggest employer in York. So
it's a huge site, that, isn't it?
Oh, it always reminds me of, I'm not something I'm particularly into, but I always, when I'm trying to explain to people what it's like, it's a little bit like The Simpsons. And it's like the power plant, and it's everybody works there. And in that area in Huntington, in York, the suburb of Huntington, that is just Portakabin. It's vast.
Yeah. So I used to actually work there, Richard.
Wow.
As a sign writer.
Oh my goodness.
We were based in Halifax, but we used to go over there sign writing Portakabins from time to time.
Wow. Right. Oh well, I think. They sort of took the band on, and again, like I say, when I came to the band in 2010, it was a really depleted band. There was what they called concert band, which was like a little B band, and that was pretty much what went on. So we sort of took it from there. Now, quite recently, to go full circle, the Portakabin has just recently been sold, back last year in May, to be precise. So this multi-billion-pound company has been sold, and the irony is being sold to another Swiss company. Oh. So it's not a company that make porta cabins or modular buildings. It's just an investment company that's bought this, that's bought them. So it's been quite a nervous time for the band, particularly when we got the news that we had to drop the group part of our name. So I think people probably might have picked up on this on social media. We haven't made a big thing of it, but it's now the Shepherd Brass Band as opposed to the Shepherd Group. But when we actually, 20 years ago, when the sponsorship started, it was actually then it was called the Shepherd Building Group. Right. So it's undertook a few names, but legally, because the Shepherds are no longer involved in porta-cabin, legally we had to drop the group.
Yeah.
So this has caused us quite a little bit of worry until really recent. 3 weeks ago, we had a huge meeting with the CEO at Portakabin, the new owners, and various things, and we've been reassured that we can still. I mean, the building that we use for our rehearsal facilities is brilliant. It's a huge place called the High Bay Theatre, and it's the conferencing centre and where everybody does their training for porta-cabin. And back in the day, the guy that actually secured the sponsorship was the site manager, plays trombone in our B band. He's retired now, but he was the works manager that sort of looked after the whole site. So he had these huge Titan porta-cabins, 2 of them dropped in the grounds of the High Bay Theatre. One became the library and the offices, and then the other one became the storage unit. And nobody ever said anything. I don't think anybody really knew. But they've, we had a meeting with them, and they've assured us that because of the work we do in the community, they're very proud of what we do. They want to keep the link going. So we, at the moment, it's the Shepherd Group Brass Band, the Shepherd Brass Band. Who knows, in a year or so's time, there might be some more news, but for now, that's where we are. So
it's really lovely to get reassurance when things like this have happened. I've been involved in companies. I remember when YBS pulled out of sponsoring the band. It was devastating.
Yes.
And it like you rightly say, there's a lot going on in the community. Looking from the outside, yes, you seem very, very involved in the community. So that's really good.
Well, that's absolutely, Simon. And we've now. Oh, goodness me! I mean, it's great. It's Thursday night, and I'm with you guys tonight. But it's Thursday night officially is the only sort of night I'm off from band duty. So I'm there every night of the week, pretty much. I've got to pop down later. Actually, I will be there in some capacity tonight just to pick some stuff up and do a couple of jobs. But it is it's a way of life. As you guys were brought up, same era. It's what we do. It's non-negotiable. As an old conductor said, it's not life or death. It's far more important. And for me, that's how I was brought up, and it still is. And I know life has changed dramatically, but we've got 6 bands now.
Jesus.
Yeah, so and we're not alone. We're not alone. I know your Wantages and your Amershams are all doing exactly the same sort of work. So, I mean, just to sort of go on to a little bit then about what we have. We have our brass roots, which is your beginners, your starters, the kids that arrive, or adults that arrive with either limited knowledge of what they're doing or absolutely none at all. The one thing that, while ever I'm sort of steering this ship, that I want to make sure happens is that everything is free. So tuition and instruments are free. There are subs paid by majority of the bands, but subs are just negligible. I think for our training bands, and to learn to play in your instrument, it works out about £1 a week.
Okay.
Every year we talk about subs and should they go up, and it's no, move on, next on the agenda. We want to keep it exactly where it's accessible. If people can't afford subs, then we subsidise that. So it's open to everybody. A couple of years ago, we got a new principal cornet in the band, a guy called Sean Chandler, who is a pro trumpet player from the Wirral area. He moved to York because he met his wife in York. So he's moved over here now. And Sean is a deaf musician. So Sean has profound hear loss since the age of 4. So if on a scale, he's not profoundly deaf. His hearing is described as severe. So he has hearing aids in, and when they come out, he hears nothing. So Sean plays principal cornet. He is one serious talent.
Yeah,
I think to have got into his 30s and not found his way at the top of the tree, I think that's another discussion to why he hasn't. Okay. Because I think there's been a lot of overlooking, and I'll call it, I don't like the word discrimination, but I think a lot of people have just looked straight past him as this can't possibly work. I was looking for a principal cornet player and I advertised the position, and Sean emailed me, and then we eventually got together and got him down for a blow, and I was just blown away from day one. There are major issues with having a deaf person in your band. Not issues, obstacles, better word. Obviously, communication is everything, isn't it? So if you guys have conducted at the very, very highest level. So you imagine you've got somebody in your band who's deaf. Mm-hmm. So, and he's your principal cornet player as well, so you're speaking and he's got to be able to communicate. So we undertook quite a lot, and I certainly have undertaken some work with BSL, British Sign Language, so that there's a pretty basic understanding there of what we're doing. The only reason
he struggles with speech as well, and
no, he's not too bad.
Right.
Sean will listen to this podcast, and he's the biggest character I've ever met, and I'm sure he'll love the fact that I'm about to say what I'm about to say, because Sean's a Scouser.
Ah.
And he does have, there is this, there obviously, there is his speech is great, but this sort of, this accent that you get is quite hilarious. It's hilarious. He's a wonderful character. And I say the reason I mention him is because we have our brass roots group, and me and Sean once sat down and had a chat. And I just sort of said, look, for me, it's all about opening doors, and it's all about projects and what can we do? What's the next thing we can do? And I said, wouldn't it be great if we could get somebody along the lines, your dad has pushed and he's got you to be able to play in a brass band. So why have I never seen anybody with, profound deafness? Why have I never seen that in a brass band before? We can do something about this. So we started up working with a charity that's in York called I Can Play. And I Can Play give access to young children with hearing difficulties the opportunity to work with musical instruments. It's only, I think they do the second Saturday of each month, something like little sessions at the Centre for Early Music in York. And we've ended up joining forces with them, and we now have a group. Our group on a Monday night is called I Can Play with Brass Roots. So a bit of the play on words. So we now have children from around the North Yorkshire area, York, East Coast, that sort of area, attending sessions that we've got funding for. Sean's available then to work with us. And we've got children, with hearing impairment. So we've won the Brass Band England Award this year for that project of the year. That's
really wonderful.
So it's this sort of stuff that so we've got that going on a Monday.
As a role model, I once met Evelyn Glennie.
Oh, wow!
She's profoundly deaf.
Absolutely.
What a player!
It's scary, isn't it? It's scary, and I mean, I don't know with Sean. It's really interesting. When he first joined the band, as you guys would totally get this, one of his biggest issues was pitch, so intonation, tuning. He doesn't hear that, so he has to rely on me. He has a tuner on his stand. We rely on each other. But interestingly, it's got better and better, and now we have no issues at all. I say no issues at all. I think we have issues all around the band, but there's no more with Sean than anybody else now. So that's, it is the communication side of things, and that we've just had to work with, and we've had the BSL people in to run courses with everybody at band that works alongside these kids, because the thing is now we do big concerts. Our own concerts. This is interesting, Sandy, actually. Something that I remember we talked a lot about at Grimy back in the day on the bus coming back from gigs with Colin and various people, that for a band that was, I always used to feel this was a fact. A band like Grimy, why did it never promote its own concerts? Why were we at the other end? We were at the other end of the country till 6 o'clock in the morning, travelling back on a weekend. And you could have gone to Sheffield, we could have gone to Sheffield City Hall, filled the place, earned a fortune, and been half an hour from home. So one of the things I really wanted to do at Shepherds was start this concert series. Now, it has been helped by the size of the organisation now, because what we try and do we do 2 Christmas concerts, and then we do a spring one that comes up in June. And we use the local theatre so we can get a good audience in. And then it was just hard work, really, basically formulating mailing lists from all our audiences, and they are now emailed out on a regular occurrence 2 or 3 times a year with all the gigs on, and they're our gigs, so the Christmas gigs that we put on, that we're profiting over £10,000 just from the 2 Christmas gigs. And again, that's just, but it does help when you've got nearly 200 members, because when one child's bringing 4 or 5, you're filling concert halls. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But that's been fantastic. So we've got an academy band, which I actually conduct, which is for the kids that have come through the brass roots, and it's the next stage. It's frightening to say we could really do with more bands, because there's 52 of them in the academy band.
Wow!
So it's a little bit it's hard work, actually, and that could do with condensing somehow. And then once we finished on a Monday night, the youth band come in and take over. And the youth band, again, brilliant timing of this podcast, because last weekend they competed at the Nationals. And in their section, which is the middle section that they perform at, and it's more on age group than ability, as it would seem, they performed in the Yamaha performance section, and they became the sort of national champions. They won that last weekend.
Wonderful.
So that's the second. It's only 10 years old, is the youth band, and that started myself and a wonderful friend of mine at band, a guy called Craig Brown. He plays solo E-flat bass for me. He's Craig, he's a brilliant musician. He's been with me right from the start. I actually took him on second euphonium 15 years ago. He was a graduate from York University. He was doing his masters on euphonium, and apart from a year out to go and play a trombone on a cruise ship, which he thought was a good idea, he's been with me. He's an absolute legend, and he's a head of music at one of the big secondary schools in York. And together we do most of the stuff that we do at Shepherds is myself and Craig. Craig conducts the youth band, and I remember about 10 years ago saying we could really do with a youth band. And he said, yeah, absolutely, wouldn't it be great, wouldn't it? So we ended up going on a Monday night. We took the 6 oldest kids from the beginners group. We took them into a porta cabin, sat them around, and said, right, from now on, you'll be known as the youth band. And I say, I think we had 42 on stage on Saturday at the Nationals, and they're doing fantastic things, and that's exciting. And then we have a concert band, which I think we'd all call a B band, but it's not. It's Shepherd Concert Brass, which is a band in their own entirety. That's a huge group as well. There's 46 of them, I think, in total. It's a huge band. We've got 9 solo cornets. I think there's about 15 trombones. It's bonkers. It's a huge band. But they do all their own gigs, and they're really entertaining. They're not your standard brass band. It's a lot of pop covers. It's a real party band, and they have their own audience. They just follow them everywhere. They do a lot of our charity stuff as well. And then lastly was what we call the band project, which came about when one of the older members of our concert band was chatting to me one night about 3 years ago, just after COVID, actually, because we'd done a lot of online stuff on COVID, and we got all our players playing. And then I actually advertised during the COVID pandemic that on a Wednesday night, I'd meet everybody on Zoom or whatever it was at the time, and we would just do a little, it'd be like a band practice. I hadn't a clue what I were doing. And the first week, I think I had 20 of them on there, and we sat doing warm-ups. They're all in the little, like we're sat now looking at each other. Yeah. And we're doing little warm-up exercises. They were all on mute. I hadn't a clue what they were doing. I had a metronome ticking, and I got my tuba, and I said, just follow me, we'll do these. And I just started putting it out there. And by the time we'd finished, there was about 135 people from all over the country. So as far as Cornwall, Scottish borders, Wales, everybody was logging in. So we took it. It was brilliant. I had sessions where Phil Harper came on and took the hour. I can remember Phil coming on and taking the whole we call it a band, the whole band on Zoom in silence on Phil Sparks' Malvern Suite. Right. It created a click track, so everybody could play along to this click track as well. And, he kept stopping them and saying, right, stylistically, I want this to happen. I think we should do this, and we'll have a little practice. I'll count you in. Right. Couldn't hear a thing, but then just move on. And it just went. And I sort of said, well, it'd be great if we got everybody together once COVID's over, and we could all actually. And one of our players, an old lady, she's still in our B band. She's 85 years old. She said, we never get a chance to play any test pieces. I said, do you really want to? And she said, well, no, not every week. But she says, I always think in March when you're going to the areas with senior band, I always feel a bit sad that we've not had something to have a go at. I said, so I came away. I thought, right. So the band project was formed, and it's I think, second Sunday of every month. A couple of hours on a Sunday morning. It's open up to the local community. But last month, just before the area actually was bonkers, but there was about 68 people turned up. So they are players from, and they're not, and it's open to sort of, ideally, your non-registered player, your community bander that doesn't see anything. So it was brilliant this year, because what we ended up doing, we ended up, from January, we did 2 pieces on the morning. We didn't rehearse people. We'd rehearse a section altogether, but it was really a playthrough. And then, we could do this better. Let's all try it, but not getting anybody to play individually. Right. And we basically covered all the area test pieces up to the first section. So I think the proudest thing I ever was listening to the last hour of the last rehearsal last month. Everybody playing Introduction, Elegy, and Caprice. These are unregistered players. And you guys know how difficult that piece is. And yet we didn't play it, but the buzz that these players got by thinking that they played through this first section test piece, and they did a brilliant job, to be fair. Yeah. So it was, we'd covered every piece and said, well, there you go, guys. That was your area in 3 months. You've done everybody's piece, apart from the top section. You've had to go everybody's piece. So we keep that one going. So that's sort of our 6th band, if you like it. It's and that's what we do. So it's wonderful. And if I'd got more hours, I'd be up for doing even more, because it's such, I don't know, you hear a lot, don't you? And I'm not here to preach about any of it, but you do hear a lot of people saying, our banding's dying. And, the big question is it, why? Why is it?
Well, it's funny. Me and Sandy had a chat this afternoon.
Yeah.
And we were sort of chatting about what we might ask you this evening and things like that. And I said, well, it's remarkable, really, because York is not a traditional brass band area.
No, not at all.
It's not got the historical industry linked to it and everything. So it's quite unique. But you're representative of a lot of areas in the UK, and who haven't got that wool industry, the coal industry, all this. Yeah, we've all moved forward, but you seem to have moved on massively from what you've told us now, developing this thing. Yeah,
it's really we often talk about at band. We often talk about the the M62 corridor, as we call it.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you drive down the M6, and I do it now at my age, I still driving to Manchester Airport or something, I get very excited looking at signposts and thinking, oh, Milne Row, wow, is that where they are? So that M62 corridor is just come up quite often in York. You're right, we don't have that tradition. In fact, in York, I guess it's often been looked at as a more affluent area, so the orchestras get quite a lot of prominence. We have a lot of orchestras in York, and pretty good ones as well. So I don't know. It was how has it come? I mean, we've got two pretty good bands in York. There's ourselves and there's the Railway Institute band.
Yeah. Is that
And
the one that David Lancaster's
Yeah,
done?
that's right. Yeah, Dave takes them. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And it's tricky. I think certainly one of the things that has helped over the last couple of years as well is the university brass band has helped. And I know quite a lot of the university players play at the Railway Institute band, so they've got a really good connection there. They use a lot of the students, and that's not a bad little band. We've did some work with them before Uni Brass with some of my soloists from Shepherds. We took them to do a full day's workshop with them. So we've got a good relationship. They're doing a joint concert with our youth band on May the 4th as well. So we've got the links there with the unit, although there are no brass band courses at York. It's not brass, but I think it was really interesting. We went down. They've got a huge band in the university, and there isn't one music student in the band.
Wow,
really?
So so it's these are youngsters that are coming from all over the country and the world,
doing different subjects.
Yeah, doing different, mathematicians and what have you.
Yeah.
But they play a bit of trumpet or whatever they've played in their local brass band. But I think where it's, and the other thing as well is that in York, I don't know whether you guys are aware of this, but we don't have a music service.
Oh.
So we have become a little bit, we have a music hub so your hubs are there to divvy the money up and decide where that money goes. But we don't have a music service. So, as such, there are only 2 brass perries in the city. I'm one of them.
Right.
So, how on earth does this happen in York? It's a brilliant question, and I'm not even sure if I know the answer to it. Other than what I do love, and what we've tried to we work really well with the hub. We don't have any money. We don't have any funding from the hub or anything. But we are sort of now seen as the go-to place for brass education, and that for me that just affirms everything we do and hours we put in.
I think what I'm trying to get across, Richard, is because you're not from a traditional brass band area, you've obviously made your own tradition. Okay, it's not quite as long, but you're obviously going down the right track with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. I mean, with being a peripatetic, because I know one of the questions I get, a lot of people will actually ring up conductors of other bands, so we want to try and I've had quite a lot of meetings in the last few years where I've gone along to other bands' committee meetings and sat in, and that it's often the question, Simon. It's often how do we do it?
Yeah.
And I don't think
which is what we're interested in.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? It's really interesting. But I think where are the really successful groups? So if you take what we're doing at Shepherds, I think I would have to obviously put Sam in there at Elland.
Yeah.
The Amersham guys, the Wanted guys. These are the guys with really, really big organisations.
I know Enderby, I was there. They've got 5 bands.
Absolutely. So, and they listened to Enderby actually last week at the Youth Champs with their youth band. And I think, I don't know, there seems to be a bit of a common denominator in that they're driven by a brass perry.
Yeah.
And I think you can't sort of underplay that because Go on, Sandy.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just thinking, I mean, this is fascinating stuff. And I know, like, when we phone each other up, Richard, it's all of a sudden it's like an hour later and it's like 5 minutes. What's coming across is the reason for the success of these places is exactly people like you, right? The enthusiasm is like sparking through this talk, and as to that. So one of the reasons why it's successful is because it's driven by a live wire like yourself, and that's the catalyst, isn't it? It's you, Martin Hall, Sam Harrison, Lee Rigg, Brad McCulloch at
absolutely agree,
and Jane and all these people.
There's Helen Minshall. There's some Just recently, it's starting to explode, and like you rightly say, there's a lot of doom and gloom about banding. But actually, when you lift up that next piece of paper, there's a lot of good things going on.
Do you find, Richard? You find that a lot of these youngsters coming through, and they're obviously progressing through these groups. That yes, the music and the playing is one thing. But the camaraderie and the social side and all that, is it because those kids feel a belonging?
A belonging,
and a sort of, they're in a big group and it sort of gets the juices going, sort of thing,
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely agree. I think it 100% is that, and it's a really good point, because one of the things we've done, and again, this is not. There isn't money on a plate just to go and do things that other people can't do. This is all fundraising and parental support, and we've used as much funding as we can to help the kids that couldn't possibly afford to do this. But when you think about it, you go to band, and for a lot of these bands, it's a case of you sit for an hour or 2 hours or whatever. You might never speak to anybody in that band, and you don't know them. You don't have a clue who these people. I imagine a lot of people just don't know the names of the other people in the band. So one of the things we decided a good few years back was, I think the first ever, we call it a tour, but it was just a tiny little thing. We took the youth band to Wiltshire, and we ended up going to one of these out of bounds places near Devizes, and that turned into the most unbelievable weekend or few days in the history of that youth band, because they just to sit back and watch them all become friends.
Yeah.
And then it had, WhatsApp groups appear, and they're suddenly just woof. And what we've tried to do is take them away every other year. So we don't go every year, but we for the last 2 trips have been to Disneyland in Paris.
Wow.
So which has been absolutely unbelievable. And Disneyland's like nothing else. So if you want to play in Disneyland, the hoops you have to jump through, because you have to be auditioned, because they won't just let anybody turn up and play. So lots of videos and lots of auditions later, we've been really lucky to go and play on the main stage. And once you play on the main stage, it's like a film set. The dry ice is out.
Brilliant.
You're announced on, and the kids are just high as kites, and then spend the next 2 days on as many roller coasters as possible. But they've been something that we've been really keen on. And they say that very first one, although we went down and we had some friends that lived down in Wiltshire, and one of our friends conducts a little string group called Strings Incognito. They play pop covers in their string group. And we ended up going down and doing a couple of concerts with them, just joining forces, and it was the best thing ever. As I say, that turned our youth band around to what we've got now. But I think again, I think you're right. I think it's somewhere to go. It's a club. I've often said this. I want to be in a club. Kids do. They want to be in a club.
Going back a long time, what did it for me was the National Youth Band.
Yes.
There's so many people on that, and still really good friends to this day.
Yeah, and absolutely.
So that was my club.
Yes.
At that time, I look forward to it twice a year, and it stood me in good stead.
Yeah, we've been really lucky as well, because I was telling you a little bit about Sean our deaf cornet player. Sean is on the house team because he was in the national youth, and he's now on the house team of the national youth brass band.
Oh, lovely!
And Craig, who conducts the youth band, is on the house team with the national children's brass band.
Okay.
So that's been really useful as well, because we're now starting to feed a lot of the kids through that system, which I think is massively important. So they're sitting around with these kids that are just world beaters, absolutely top class playing. They're getting to hear that as well. But as I say, I think the bottom line of it all is a team of people, which I am the luckiest man alive when it comes to the people that I get to work with at Shepherd's, the doers. The ones that are there at the opening of everything. They're just, I hope that, I guess like me, it's just the enthusiasm drips from them. They don't miss anything. They're there. The enthusiasm's there for everyone to see, and that passes on to the kids, and not just the kids, hopefully. And it will always be, with any of this, the hardest group to deal with will always be the one at the top, the better players. That'll never change. It never has done. We've all played there, haven't we, at that level? And my band, the main band is a good band. It's a good, they are great players and are a good band. But that's far harder to deal with than 50 kids.
Yeah.
And I think
it's because they discover what an ego is.
Well, exactly that, isn't it? You do have that, and I think, but one thing that's brilliant as well for our main band is I think there's a huge sense of pride for those players that they are at the top of this umbrella of. Because we do, like I've said to you, we do so many concerts where we're all together, and I mean, we can't. It was our 20th anniversary last year of being the involvement with Shepherd's. So we had a big year last year, lots of dinners and various things. And we had a big concert last June, and Liz Lane composed a piece for the organisation, which was brilliant. It was a piece called Modular 20 we decided on in the end. So it was all to do with modular buildings.
Yeah.
And to the point where she actually was taken on a tour around the factory.
Right.
And actually recorded lots of sound of the machinery that was punching out these
making these,
yeah. So we'd got massive pieces of wood on stage with it. We got mallets and spanners and all sorts that the kids were hitting together. We'd talk about a risk assessment. Some of the stuff that it was unbelievable. But that was the entire organisation on the theatre stage. Playing this, she'd done it brilliantly because she'd done parts for the absolute beginners. Nobody was sat there not playing anything. They were all totally engaged. So I think everybody's just dead proud of everybody. That it just filters all the way down. So everybody knows everybody. The kids know who the main guys in the senior band are.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that the one thing I've never experienced anywhere else is the togetherness.
Right.
It's an often used word. I don't like it, but it is one big family. When you walk in, nobody sort of stood at the bottom. If you put the bands in the band room, it'd all be mixed up. There wouldn't be a band down in the corner hiding. They all know each other, and I think that's really helpful as well.
Yeah,
it's a safe place. It's a great place to be.
It's really, this has been one of the most fascinating podcasts that we've done. So thank you for that. I mean, it's just, you've inspired me.
You have.
Yeah.
It really is. I can see why it's successful, Richard, with you at the helm.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that, knowing you two as long as I have. It's in the blood, isn't it? And it's, I listen to your podcast and I'm inspired listening to you guys because you're so passionate about everything that we're trying to do in this movement. And that's what makes me sort of go to band on a night thinking, come on, we've got to do it. And I know we've not touched on so much, but like you say, just producing players, and it is tough. And it is tough when people just want the success.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit more to it. It's you're not going to just constantly churn out world leading brass players. It's not going to happen.
No.
But the fact that you're not sat around staring at empty seats every rehearsal, because you are creating something. It's really satisfying, to be fair.
Richard, just you were talking earlier about we used to sit on that blooming band coach coming up the M1 every Saturday night from wherever the hell we'd been, and then you'd be arriving back at Birdwell at 5:30 in the morning and buying the Sunday papers on the way home and stuff like that. But all those conversations about putting on your own concerts. Now, that was before COVID, obviously, a long time. I think times have changed, and I think, we're always talking about bands having to put their own concerts on. And I can remember talking things like every band in the country's got to develop a local following.
Absolutely.
And I think that is starting to happen now. Certainly post-COVID. I mean, even the big bands, they're not doing as many concerts. They're not going as far.
No,
fuel prices, coach prices, all that jazz has made it unfeasible in a lot of cases. So a lot of even the bigger bands are playing closer to home. And I think if every band in the country got a local following like you're doing, it's going to improve things. You're gonna have your own sort of clientele that's going to come to regular seasons of concerts.
Yeah,
locally.
Absolutely. It's really interesting because we do a concert every February in the Opera House in York, and it's called York Brass Against Cancer. So it's for the local charity York Against Cancer, and a local guy who's a friend of the band, he got cancer himself, and he's turned into a huge fundraiser. He's wonderful, and he wanted to put this concert on. So he started the year before COVID, actually, and we had the first. He wanted a big name band, and he wanted Shepherd's band to be the sort of constant. So you'll be the band every year, but we'll bring in a guest.
Right.
And you know the size of the Opera House, you're talking 3,000 seater, So the first year we had Brighouse, which was good. It was good. It was a good one. It was a really good one. Didn't make any money for the charity.
Right.
Now, it's really interesting because having spoken to a lot of charities, one of the things that they're very cool about, and it's like I get quite upset and worked up if we're not making tens of thousands of pounds for a charity. One of the things that they say, a lot of the time it's just about exposure and being out there. We're not too worried about making money. It's being relevant. So, then we did the second, we come back after COVID and we did it with Dyke.
Right.
Didn't make a lot of money. And then we're talking about a full venue. And then it was interesting because we did Grimy last year. Again, we sort of, and no real money made at all. And this year we did it in February and we made the most money ever. Made over $5,000 for the charity.
Wow.
And that were with one of the best concerts ever, absolutely packed to the rafters, and that with our brand new best mates at Hammond's.
Oh wow!
Really? Well,
and it was just what a wonderful and with Morgan and what have you, and it's really interesting. And as I say, that following is really interesting because I think the reason I mentioned that concert because it wasn't really directed at your question, Sandy, but I think we've got a really good following in York. Mm-hmm. So we're able, and I think again, it's that untradition thing we talk about. Tradition. There isn't really a tradition of it's Black Dyke that will be packed to the rafters.
Yeah.
But interesting, and I was thrilled because Ammons were just wonderful. The whole experience of the whole day with those guys was second to none.
He plays some good rap, doesn't he?
Well,
he does.
They played the right stuff. Absolutely played to the audience. But I mean, we got the punters in as well. It was great. But I think, I just don't understand. I think if you, wherever you are, use that as your base and chase those people in your town, your city, your village, wherever it may be. And we've managed to do that really, really well. So things like we've been doing the last couple of years. We did the Snowman at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ended up now a 4-show sellout And, I know more and more bands are doing it, and it's a great thing to do. This year, Wallace and Gromit will be coming back to the university and all that type of stuff. But, build your audience. It takes a few years, there's no doubt about that, to get these people, but play the right stuff. But, I think that's where, as I say, we're going back 20-odd years, Sandy, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, but you're now talking about a situation that you've got in York in February every year.
Yeah.
Where next year they will be expecting one of these concerts.
Yes, absolutely. It's a big sort of...
It has almost become a tradition that even if it's only been going 5 or 6 years, it's so that you've got a regular gig at that time.
And you've got an expectation from your audience.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
that's it.
That's it. So I think it's for me. The miles have got to stop, and people have got to just. I mean, we don't go out of the city. We don't do very much anywhere else. It is all city based, but we get the audiences.
Yeah, so good.
It's really positive.
No, that's been great. It's been really. Yeah, I'm a bit G'd up as well, But it's because of your enthusiasm, mate. That's
it's infectious.
And I can imagine you in front of 50 kids.
It's wonderful,
whipping them into shape and
it's amazing.
Enthusing them.
There's nothing better, and as I say, so it just got to keep going. Just got to get as many doing this as we can, and then there's a future of it for it, isn't there? That's the important thing. It's the legacy, and we'll leave something behind.
Absolutely. Richard, I can't thank you enough for giving us the insight into the unbelievable organisation that you've got there. So for this week, thank you, Richard Wilton from Shepherd Band, and thanks, Sandy, and it's goodbye from me. Thank you.